What is up, friends? Takeover peeps, random person coming across this video. However you got here, I'm happy to have you. We are back with another weekly wrap-up. That is the weekly talk show presented by myself, DMN Takeover on Twitter/X. We talk about all sorts of entertainment things, sports cards, sometimes video games, things going on, collectibles in general, music, all that stuff. Most of us probably are fresh off of celebrating Halloween this weekend, even though as of the day that I'm recording this video, Halloween is today. You probably had your respective parties and such this weekend though, rather than on a Monday. Tuesday, rather than on a Tuesday, I would love to see the costumes that you wore at your parties that you went to, if you did, or if you just went trick-or-treating around your neighborhood, whatever you did, I'd love to see that. Send me a picture on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably going to keep calling it Twitter forever. Send those to me on DMN Takeover. I'd love to see them. I volunteered for something called Spooky Science this last week at my daughter's school on Friday. It was super fun, actually. The theme was Greek gods and goddesses. They dressed up, and then the kids in her class the older kids came up with a science experiment to present to the younger students as they came through the classroom. And the classroom was all set up with, fog and lights and Halloween decorations, and the kids could grab candy on their way out after learning some science. So that was really cool. Following that, I went to a fall festival that my daughter's school was hosting. So it was a pretty kid-centric Halloween for me. No parties this year for adults, but I did go out with some friends and my wife afterwards, so that was a lot of fun. I sent out this question on Twitter, but I'll also make it the question of the day. I asked, if you could wake up tomorrow with one new skill that you don't already have, what would you want that skill to be? And I got some pretty interesting answers from you guys. At Huntables said he'd like to learn coding, and that sounds awesome. At Mark Coral and at Carolina Card EX1 both had similar wants for certain guitar skills. At Twisted Concept said that he'd love to be an NFL QB, and rumor has it the Minnesota Vikings could use one, but we'll get into that later. At Brian A. Bell 1980 said that he'd like to be a pro sports color commentator, and Brian, I would watch you do that. And there were some other great ones too, but I'm not going to read them all. You can go look at the post, actually. You can see what other folks said. And I want to hear in the comments on this video what you would choose as your skill to wake up with. Sports. The NBA is back. We've seen about 4 to 5 games at this point from every single team as of recording this video. Now, I'm not going to get into every single little game detail of things that happen because it's a long season. I mean, it's not baseball or hockey long, but it's 82 games, okay? At least the NFL is 17 weeks now, plus playoffs eventually. But it's just much more manageable. But let's take a look at some of the things that have been going on. Let's look at some of the stat leaders, what some of the rookies we've been interested are doing. Luka Doncic is currently leading the league with 39 points per game. And speaking of other scoring leaders, one of the cool surprises this year is Cam Thomas is picking up right where he left off with the Brooklyn Nets last year, and he's averaging 33 points per game. Domantas Sabonis is leading all rebounders in that rebounds per game category with 15. And a cool surprise in that category for me is the Pistons' Jalen Duren, who is in year 2 with Detroit and is averaging 13.2 rebounds a game and also tacking on 15.5 points per game to go with that. Some very Andre Drummond numbers. In the assists category, Tyrese Halliburton is leading the way with a whopping 12.3 assists per game. Now let's just peek at what the rookies are doing really quick. Brandon Miller of the Hornets is leading all rookies with 17.3 points per game. And the surprise one for me is Ausar Thompson is averaging the most rebounds per game. Not Chet, not Wemby, not the tall 7-foot guys we talk about all the time. This Thompson twin is averaging 10.5 rebounds per game. He's also leading the rookies in assists per game with 4.3. Now, 2 of our favorite rookies, the ones we just mentioned that aren't leading in rebounds this year, let's look at what they're doing. Victor Wembanyama is averaging 16 points per game, just under 16 points per game, and 7 rebounds per game. And Chet Holmgren is putting up 15 points per game and 6 rebounds per game. And the other night he had a 7-block performance, which is wild. Now, before we move on to NFL news and stats and whatever, we need to talk about the little, I guess you'd call it a blockbuster trade that happened, because on the day of recording this, which is Tuesday, I went to sleep last night, didn't even finish watching the Monday Night Football game, and I woke up to see that James Harden was traded. Now, there were a lot of moving pieces in it, players and I think draft picks, so I'm not going to read them all, but basically James Harden is now a Los Angeles Clipper, and it's clear that they're wanting to make a run at a title this year. All right, the NFL. Friends, I just need a moment of silence for my Minnesota Vikings. mean, we've been through so much. We watched that game in 1998. I don't even want to say the words. Gary Anderson's kick. Art can only take so much. My father saw them reach 4 Super Bowls and lose them all. And together we watched them lose to the Saints in the 2010 championship. 1 game away from the Super Bowl. But oh dear viewer, that's not it. After seeing them pull off the Minneapolis Miracle, the Case Keenum last-second touchdown to Stephon Diggs, he caught that over the player, ran down the field, scored the touchdown, and threw his helmet. We once again moved on to the championship game only to lose. I held hands with my brothers and sisters that also love the purple and gold and watched them just feel another chance, another opportunity slip through their fingers. Now this season, after a glimmer of hope and an injection of energy and winning, heartbreak sinks in once again. We have lost our beloved Kirk Cousins. He's still alive, but his Achilles tendon is not. Sorry. That's right, folks. Now Minnesota sits in that position where we've won just enough to fall out of the top draft pick category for next year to get our next quarterback. And we've also lost enough to be bad enough to not have a run at the playoffs. Unless our 60-year-old quarterback, or however old he is from BYU, wants to win some games, the season's over. Thank you for being here with me for this. But you know what? There's cheer for me too, because my Baltimore Ravens are flying high. And they are now 6-2 after a victory over the Arizona Cardinals in which Gus Edwards ran for 3 touchdowns. The San Francisco 49ers have now lost 2 games in a row. And they're going to want to pick it up real quick so that the momentum they rolled into the beginning of the season with does not slip from their fingers. Sam Howell had a great game despite a loss to a fantastic Philadelphia Eagles squad. Howell threw for 397 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also threw 1 interception, but that's okay. Speaking of throwing 4 TDs, the Titans, who first of all wore the old Houston Oilers uniforms, which I think is massively cool. I love those things and I want to see more of that. Threw for 238 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also no picks. So, I mean, that's 1 game, but maybe that's their guy. On the running end of things, Jahmyr Gibbs is here, folks. He finally got the amount of touches he deserves, and he went off with it. He ran for 152 yards and a touchdown on 26 carries. Receiving-wise, CeeDee Lamb led the way with 12 receptions for 158 yards and 2 TDs. But we also have to mention the Saints' Rashid Shaheed. His day was 3 catches for 153 yards. Now, once again, that's only 3 catches, but folks, that's a 51 yard per catch average. The Kansas City Chiefs lost to Denver, and Patrick Mahomes' stay in KC might be over, so maybe the Vikings can give him a call. No, I'm just kidding. But it was a bad game for Mahomes. He threw for only 241 yards, 0 touchdowns, and also threw 2 interceptions. Travis Kelce also had a quieter game of only 58 receiving yards and no touchdowns because Mahomes didn't throw any. I do want to point out that Taylor Swift was not at the game, and you might laugh about that, but if you look at his stats this season, the guy performs much better when Taylor Swift is there. Kelce averages 108 yards per game for ones that Taylor Swift attends, and then only 46.5 for games without her. Laugh all you want, but that's significant. And also, Fanatics, since you're going to be making football cards going forward, I want to see Travis Kelce cards with the overall season receiving stats, the Taylor Swift in attendance receiving stats, and then the Taylor Swift not in attendance receiving stats split up, please. It's a little idea for you. Sports cards, the Tacofractor is the talk of the town, and it has been activated. Now, if you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, basically there's this card that you had a chance at pulling in 2023 Topps Chrome baseball product called a Tacofractor, and it gave you the chance to win Taco Bell for life, which defined by Taco Bell is $15,000 in gift cards. In that, you could have pulled a number of different players on the Tacofractor, and then you needed that player to do something specific that Taco Bell laid out in a real-life game for you to become a winner. And that officially happened when Ketel Marte, I think I said the last name right, Marte, is it Mart? Someone tell me, it's too late, I said it on video, stole a base in the 3rd inning of the Rangers and Diamondbacks game last Friday. Now, any collector that has Ketel's Tacofractor card has 10 days to claim this prize from Taco Bell. I think they're numbered out of 5, so in theory, there's 5 of them out there, but that doesn't mean that all of them have been pulled. So there might only be 1 or 2 people holding that card right now. And you may be thinking, $15,000 in Taco Bell. Someone needs to do the numbers on that. Like if you ate Taco Bell every single day on average, like how many years that would actually get you through. I feel like those years don't actually match the living age of most people, but then at the same time, they might be factoring in how many years are cut off of your life by eating Taco Bell every day. You may also be wondering if this card has sold individually separately so you can actually know if, because it could have been a situation where someone just bought a box of cards, whatever that cost, and then they pulled it, and then it's just basically they paid the box value of the cards. But you might want to know if they sold it as a single on eBay or something to kind of see how someone came out on top of that. And guess what? I got those numbers. In August, there was a sale for this card somewhere in between $300 and $400. And then again, towards the end of October 25th to be exact, for $1,000. So I'd say someone came out on top if they like Taco. I mean, even if you don't like Taco Bell, you could theoretically sell that gift card to someone. Whoever bought it for $1,000 came out $14,000 on top if they get it redeemed in the 10 days window that they've got. I'd say the owner came out just fine. Stuff that slaps. Game manuals. Now I'm talking about the old ones. The Super Nintendo, the PlayStation, the N64, the GameCube, when the manuals were actually significant. Not the ones coming out in modern day games today where you're lucky to get like a little single pamphlet on there. It's not even really technically a manual. I'm talking about like the thick boys. Like I have specific memories as a kid of getting a game, like my parents driving me to the store, me picking out the game, ripping that thing open, obviously not saving the box because I didn't know that having the box would be so valuable now in my 30s. But looking through the manual and like reading it and studying up and just becoming a champion before I've even played. Like, because those manuals were chock full of like the buttons you'd use in the game. Sometimes there would be some lore and plot it would talk about. Sometimes it would tell you about combos you could use or even give little tips and tricks. Like they were actually meaningful. And I would sit in the car and read it, try to read it all the way through before I even got home. And then I would bring them on road trips and I'd bring them other places. I'd read them on the way to school. I'd have already played through the game and I'd be reading the manuals again. Like there was just something so magical and so special about these manuals. And you don't get that today. There was also something about that was like beautiful about the childhood relationship tied to video games, because I feel like nowadays, as an adult, you might have a little bit more of an expendable income. You might be obtaining more games. But as a kid, it was like, you might only get a few a year, depending on, what your parents decided to do kind of thing. So like you really invested yourself in enjoying whatever experience you could have out of the game. I mean, I remember playing games that were not the best and still sucking out like every moment of enjoyment I could out of that game because that was the game that I got. So there was just something like immersive about that and like more special than nowadays, I feel like. And it's kind of like having those manuals and looking through those again and going back just brings back the tiniest bit of that spark again. Anyways, old-timey video game manuals, certified slapper. Now, last weekly wrap-up, I started showing, I said that I was going to start showing collectibles in my personal collection, things like that. So I want to continue doing that. This week, this is a bigger one. I'm going to hold this up. Okay, big old shadow box framed thing. Now let me explain this. Herschel Walker, first of all, let me get this out of the way. This guy here, Takeover TV, DMN Takeover, big fan of Herschel Walker, the running back. 100% certified, guarantee or your money back, not a fan of Herschel Walker, the politician, okay? We're only talking about Herschel Walker, the football player. Now, I got this years ago. This was a VHS tape. Herschel Walker had this like fitness for kids show that would be on Saturdays sometimes. And this was a VHS tape that my mom found for me at like a garage sale in the 90s. I would watch this religiously and I would do the workouts, and it came with this sheet, and you can see a little bit like I did fill it out a little bit. I would do the things and still not fill it out kind of deal. But I got some check marks on there. My mom, who is absolutely awesome, hung on to this, got the workout sheet sent to Herschel Walker. He wrote me a little note, signed it, sent it back. The thing survived. And then she shadow boxed that along with the case for the VHS tape, and that is awesome. I love this in my collection. Just like layers of cool, because the football player I grew up liking, memorabilia, my mom just like coming up with a sweet idea and doing it. That's just the kind of mom she is. That's one of my favorite personal collection items, and that will stick with me. Oh, actually, shout out to the shirt too. This could technically be a personal collection piece. This is an OG vintage, I guess, Under Oath shirt from like 2003, 2004. It was around that first, not their first album technically if you break down the history of Under Oath. Their Only Chasing Safety album. This shirt, which is funny that now I live in Florida, I have it, but it says Under Oath, Where America Goes to Die. I found this shirt again, the original one I had, so rocking it today, excited to have it back. Anyways, transition that straight into our music pick for the week. I'm going with Big Sean, and specifically the song Stick to the Plan / Voices in My Head. Actually, I flipped that around. It's Voices in My Head / Stick to the Plan. Now, historically, I've been a big Sean fan. I used to try to get a bunch of people to listen to him, all sorts of things. He was like my favorite rapper. I realized when I listened to it today, I haven't listened to him in like at least a year. So he's kind of fallen off the radar for me, but that doesn't matter. This is my music pick for this week. I'm back on this song, okay? This song came from the Detroit Natives' 2017 album, I Decided, which is a fantastic album, first of all. And I think it's some of the best stuff that Big Sean has put out. Maybe other than like the first Detroit mixtape. The song Stick to the Plan showcases some of the reasons why I think he's a fantastic and underrated rapper. I feel like he kind of gets tossed into the category of like, I don't actually know literally how many top 40 hits he's had, if any. But I think he gets thrown into like that poppier Billboard charts type rapper guy. And like, he's literally a very talented MC. In this track, he goes through different vocal tones. He goes high, he goes low. He switches the time signature. His flow goes from slow to fast and back down. Like he's just showcasing here. It's a cool song. And it's just like, it's got these dark tones to it. It's got these dark synths and pads, but then there's this kind of like bright percussion that comes in that's got like a nice, clickiness to it that brings in some light to the darker tones. It's hard to explain, but that's how it sounds to me. And he does this stuff flawlessly, all while also dropping like meaningful, thoughtful lyrics. Like the kind of lyrics where you listen to it and then you think back and then you realize there was like maybe a second layer to what he said, or you didn't realize that like the end of this sentence was actually tied to this line here and brought it together. Like it's very like intelligent, especially like up against some other rappers in this category at times. My favorite moment on the track is the 3-minute and 30 mark, where most of the instrumental drops off and he's rapping at one pace and then he slowly gets faster, and then the song ends. So if you're gonna listen to if I can get you to listen to anything, go to the 3:30 mark. But as always, I encourage you to listen to the whole song because it's worth it. That is my music pick for the week. Thank you so much for hanging out, friends. You guys are the best. Peace and love.